Okay. There we go. Hello, you guys. Just check the settings again really quick. All right, video looks good. Audio looks good. Okay. Sorry for that wait. Oh my goodness. Hello, welcome. Happy Sunday, everybody. That means you know what time it is. Time for another Q&A. Hello, IK. Hi. The Dark Eyes. Hello. Chi-chan. Hi. Oh, it's so good to see you. Wonderful. Wonderful. I hope you guys are having a wonderful weekend so far. I hope your Sunday is glorious, or Monday, depending on what part of the world you are in. Oh, hello. You're really nice. Oh, thank you, Mai. Thank you. Trying to be anonymous, but it's my podcast account. No worries. Your secret is safe here. Welcome, everybody. I'm excited. I'm excited to dive in. Going to give it just a couple of moments. I don't want to take too much time since I know running a little bit behind, a little bit delayed, but I do want to give people a moment to get the notification, come on in, join, grab a beverage, make yourself comfortable. We will be diving into those questions here in just a moment. Oh my goodness. Wow. Wow, barely 2 minutes and we're already 50 people in here. Nice. Hello. Being kind to myself. I love your YouTube name. Hello, Natalia. Hello, Mackenzie. Hello, H. Hello, Hilda. Hi from Poland. Oh my goodness. Welcome. Hello. Oh, I know it's got to be getting a little bit late over there. Thank you for joining. Oh, goodness. Yay. Elizabeth. Hello. JT. Welcome. Rob Key. Oh, we've got familiar faces in here and also plenty of new folks. So, welcome to everybody. Welcome back for those who have been around for a moment. Oh, wow. Hello, Erin. All right. Yeah, you know what? Let's go ahead. We just check something really quick. 2 seconds. And we'll go ahead and dive in. All right. All right, we're looking good. Okay, let's go ahead and jump in and get started. I don't want to wait too long. We've already got a good number of people in here, and more will continue to join, I'm sure. Again, hello, welcome. Thank you so much again, guys, for being here. I hope you're having a fantastic weekend so far. I hope you're having a wonderful morning or afternoon, evening, wherever in the world you may be. And it is that time again for another Q&A. Really quick announcement just before we get started. I like to do these just quick updates or FYIs. For anybody who is interested in working with me or any of my programs, I have all of that information down in the description box. There is a waitlist for one-on-one coaching, but I do have my coaching program, the Mindset Mastery Program, which is starting not this coming Monday, not tomorrow, but the following Monday. So we are getting close to the deadline. If you have not received an email yet, do not worry. We will get to you. We're actually doing onboarding as we speak, but it is not too late to register if you are interested. All information is down below. And yeah, without further ado, let's go ahead and jump on into some questions. Well, first, let me get some caffeine. Definitely need more caffeine. Always. Alrighty. Hey, Missy, I'm new here. How do I get rid of the belief that love never comes if I've never experienced love and have nothing to revise? Good question. So, how do we get rid of a belief if we've never experienced, that belief? Like, if there's a belief around love, but we haven't experienced love and there's nothing to revise in that sense, how do we go about changing that? Well, with revision, the power of revision goes far beyond just rewriting old memories. I mean, it is certainly good for that, but it's not just rewriting certain events, specific events that have happened to us. Revision is also the creation of new memories. We can essentially write a new story. We can create new memories entirely. So even if you haven't experienced, perhaps you haven't experienced being in a romantic relationship, therefore you don't know what to revise around love, you can always create a new story around that concept. So, what does that look like to you? What would that be for you? Identifying the the conception of a loving relationship and what that would be for you and your experience. And you can sort of flesh it out around that. I like to think of revision as almost like we're rewriting a draft on a screenplay, like we're screenwriters and we have the screenplay of our lives and we're just going back and revising old drafts and maybe taking scenes out or adding new scenes in, etc. But yeah, you can absolutely create new memories as well. Thank you for the super chat. Thank you, AM Media. What does detachment from the outcome feel like? Good question. Really good question. Because obviously, detachment is, for those who may not know, when we talk about detachment here, we're not talking about detachment from the desire itself. We're not talking about, you know, no longer desiring the thing we desire. It's detachment from that old story. It's detachment from the old beliefs and assumptions, the limiting beliefs and assumptions that created the unwanted outcome to begin with. So detachment in that regards, uh, when we when we successfully detached from the outcome, it feels like a sense of calm. It can be very subtle, and that's where it can be sort of deceiving for people because when we think about living in the end or reaching the Sabbath, for a lot of people, we presume that means that we're euphoric or that we are excited and ecstatic, when that's not really typically the case. I mean, it can be, but for many people, being in the Sabbath or that experiencing that detachment from that old story feels much more subtle than that. It's just a sense of when you think about your desire, it just feels like the obvious outcome that could happen. It feels like there's no resistance to the idea of this outcome happening or coming to pass, or there's no confliction within ourselves, right? Um, so yeah, I guess detachment from the outcome feels like the Sabbath. It feels like there's nothing left to do. There's no confliction within ourselves. It feels just very like calm, satisfying, things like that. Um, if you can sort of conceptualize being in, like, for example, if you're trying to manifest an SP, and you think about you've already been with this person for a year, if you can conceptualize that and how that would feel and how normal that would feel, it's kind of like that. So I hope that makes sense. I hope that makes sense. Let me know if I need to clarify a little bit more. All right. I'm trying to find my spot. One moment, guys. Hello, Tracy. Hi. Hi. Hello, you guys. All right. Where was my spot? Sorry, guys. Missy, could you please help me? My SP is planning his wedding and I am just tired. I don't know what to do not to feel this FOMO anxious. Oh gosh. I'm so sorry, Andrea. Yeah, I know circumstances can be like depending on the circumstance, it can, create all new layers to this, all more sense of urgency, so to speak. Um, and that sucks because we are so conditioned to the 3D. Just in general, as humans, we are so super conditioned to the 3D. I mean, the best thing that I would say, given the circumstances, and that fear, whatever you can do to not continue to bring that into conscious awareness, absolutely do. So I know that sounds like a given, but for example, if you're following your SP on social media or any mutual friends that anywhere that they could appear in your awareness, I would 100%, and I know it's hard, but I'd recommend just at least unfollowing for right now, or just maybe, you know, staying away from social media entirely and just taking a break for yourself. Because the idea with conscious manifestation is, as we all know, it's to turn within, right? If we continue to pick up cues from the 3D, it's going to intensify that anxiety and that FOMO and that sense of urgency, which is only continuing to impress what you don't want. So the first course I would absolutely recommend is, whatever may be, coming into your conscious awareness about what's going on, limit that to the best of your ability. Secondly, revision. Revising as much as you possibly can, starting with, hearing the news about that, and anything that particularly stands out to you. Um, yeah, I know it's a much easier said than done. The 3D circumstances can feel like this whole thing is impossible, but truly, when you turn within and away from the 3D to the best of your ability, you're gonna be able to connect easier to that sense of that inner self and the imagination and the imaginal states, and that's what we're trying to connect to. This is all an internal practice. It genuinely has nothing to do with the 3D. That's the given outcome, but we don't need to, like, lose ourselves out in that, if that makes sense. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Hello, Missy. First time here, and I love your channel. Thank you, Bridget. Thank you. When scripting, how many times do we write it out? Good question. I don't think that there's like a set number of times that we have to. Like, I don't think that there's a requirement, and I mean this is just my personal opinion. There's not really a requirement as to how many times we need to write it out. Really, until it becomes to feel natural for us, until we can capture the feeling of it. Um, so, for example, the way that I used to script would be almost like writing out a journal entry, uh, from the place of already having what I was desiring, from the place of having what I wanted. I would, write out a journal entry. So it was almost like describing the day from the place of living in the end. And that for me came much more naturally than trying to just write out a sentence over and over and over again. I don't know if that's what you're referring to, but maybe play around with that and see if that feels more natural. But uh, as far as how many times to write it out, really until you can capture the feeling of that end state. Hi, Missy. Can you explain more about circumstances don't matter? New to the law of assumption. Ireland here. Hello. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So the circumstances don't matter. Really mean, well, just that regardless of the circumstances and what they may look like right now in this present moment, ultimately does not. We don't need to take any of that into consideration as to what is possible for us. So even if it looks like, due to the circumstances present, that it's impossible to manifest what we desire, that's never the case, because it doesn't matter what it looks like right now. It can always change, because we're always selecting the reality of experience. We're always selecting the state of consciousness to occupy, which thus becomes the 3D experience that we have. So whatever happens now has no factor in what's possible 5 minutes, 5 days, 5 weeks from now. It's none of it's relevant because we tend to do that thing where, oh, because this is happening, I can't have it, right? We condition our desire based on the circumstances, and basically what this means is that we don't have to keep doing that because it ultimately has no factor in what is possible for us. Sorry, trying to find my spot again. Are there still spots in group coaching? I applied, but yes, absolutely, Carla. And I don't know if you were just here a moment ago when I was announcing that we're onboarding right now. We will be getting back to everybody who has registered, so do not worry because it starts a week from tomorrow. So, but yeah, yeah, somebody will absolutely be reaching out. Can you give me real advice to manifest the one I want? I can manifest things, but for my person, they still haven't reached out. Is there something I need to do? Yeah, well, absolutely. So for a lot of people, it can be more challenging to us manifesting other people versus manifesting things like material things, objects. It can feel like it's more difficult to manifest people. Now, that's purely our assumption. That's purely an observation or a perception that we have. In all actuality, there is no difference as far as the law is concerned and how the law works. It's not biased in any direction, so there's no difference there. But to us as humans, we have a perception that it's significantly harder because there's typically a history with that person. There's beliefs and assumptions that we have, generally speaking, about other people and their free will and their ability to do whatever they want, them being separate from us and things like that. So yeah, it's we perceive it as being more challenging. It's not necessarily so. It's the beliefs and assumptions we have around that. And as far as uh, why it's not happening or why they're not reaching out, I would say pay close attention to your inner world. Pay more attention to your Pay close attention to your mental diet. Sorry, I can't talk this morning. Pay close attention to the thoughts, reactions, feelings, moods that you're noticing throughout the day to day. And are they lining up with living in the end? Like, are you living from that place in your imagination most of the time from that place of already having it or already knowing that it's a done deal? Like, do the thoughts that naturally come up for you line up with that state of the wish fulfilled? Or not, right? The gauge we can always turn to if we're not seeing any movement, if we're not noticing anything happening, well, we want to turn within and like see why that is, because it's absolutely something that we are perceiving or believing, and we can note that through our own internal observation. So, yeah, and also do check out the playlist I made on, the fundamentals of manifestation if you haven't yet, where I kinda break down some of the, key things to keep in mind and things to, look out for and know. Guess what? I manifested a random few 100 pounds, and it felt like the most normal and natural thing. Awesome. Yeah, awesome. Thoughts on twin flames/twin souls? I know some people who sense a connection to their SPs before meeting. Good question. Yeah, good question, Northwest Wind. So I do I do believe that, well, the reason that we're here just as like humans as having these experiences is just that. We're here to experience greater and grander things, and that is directly that's directed to our evolution, or it's connected to our evolution. We're here to grow and evolve as man. Again, it comes back to God became man so that man could become God. We're rediscovering who we are through the external circumstances, through the experiences that we have. And with that comes interactions with other people. That, I do believe as awareness, as the father, we sort of have I guess, this is the experiences that we are meant to have in this lifetime. Now, that doesn't mean that we have to have them or that we're destined for them, because as humans, we also have free will. Like in our reality, we always have the free will to decide what to do. So just because we are meant to have an experience doesn't necessarily mean that we are going to or have to, because we can choose not to, if that makes sense. So, yeah, we are here to have certain experiences with certain people. That's why we have desires to begin with. Um, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to be moved against our will to have something happen, if that makes sense. I hope that makes sense. Hello, Mina. Hi. My SB tells me that I'm an exceptional woman and that he would have loved to be with me. We were together for 10 years, but that he's lost sexual attraction to me. Could you give me some advice? Absolutely. Absolutely, Natalia. I mean, first off, sorry that you had to go through that experience, but I wouldn't, I would revise it. I would not accept it personally. If that were me in the circumstance, and you, I take it, your aim and your desire is to get back together with your person. So I would see them in imagination. I would go in imagination to the state that already exists, where the two of you are together and happy, and everything as you want it to be, because that's already a real reality that exists. I know it can be difficult to, when somebody tells us something, we tend to just accept that. But we don't have we can revise it, and I personally would. I would revise the conversation that was had in that regard, and I would see them in your mind as you desire to experience them in the 3D. So whatever you want them to tell you, whatever you desire to hear from them, I would hear that. I would go to that place in imagination instead of holding on to this thing that happened that is certainly not ideal, and that is only going to, instill more pain. So I hope that makes sense. Revise it, revise that conversation, scrub it off the face of the earth, and go in imagination, go to that place, get familiar with the state where the two of you are back together and everything is exactly how you want it to be. Hey, Missy, a question I have is, how do I actually live as if I have my manifestation? Good question. So when we talk about living as though you have it, we mean imagination. Like in your imagination, continue to go to that place where it's already a done deal. It's already a real reality. Because unlike the 3D, there are no limitations to where we can go and what we can do in imagination. We can go anywhere, we can do anything, we can be whoever we want, be with whoever we want. It doesn't matter. There's nothing off limits in our imagination. So when we say live as the person who has your manifestation, means an imagination. Obviously, that doesn't mean we have to like fake it till we make it in the 3D, or like, go and spend a bunch of money that you don't have in the 3D or anything like that. It means conceptualize what that desired outcome looks like, feels like, what it would be like in your mind, and continue to use that for reference and build on that. And as you continue to do that, it's going to start to feel more and more of a natural dwelling place. It's going to start to feel like it's not going to feel so foreign and alien. At first, it might feel very foreign to you, but it's not going to continue to if you keep going back there. That's where the persistence part comes in. Sorry, guys, one sec. The chat likes to bounce around a lot, so that's why it might take me a second between questions, but just a heads up. Can you discuss the amount of faith slash affirmative inner conversation needed to manifest? I have heard on average 51%, but can't recall who said it. We love you, Ms. Oh, thank you, Simone. Thank you, Simone. We love you too. The amount of faith slash affirmative inner conversation. Yeah, 51%. That's a very, very exact percentage. And I mean, I don't know if I want to boil it down to that exact percentage, but I guess essentially more often than not, we want to notice that the natural thoughts coming up, the natural inner conversations that we're having, not ones that are forced or ones that we're consciously saying and doing, but the natural feeling, the natural thoughts that's coming up. We want to notice that more often than not. And that's not to say that it's going to be 100% of the time, and that we're never going to have intrusive thoughts or doubts pop up once in a while. But we want to be aware that for the most part, we are, living in the end, basically. So 51%, I mean, sure. I guess that technically is more often than not. But I would continue to obviously just continue to condition it, continue to go to that desired outcome and imagination. You know, more and more and as often as possible. Hi, Missy. What timing? I have one quick question. When revising, how to deal with something like past chat messages with SP? In my case, the last things we said before no contact are not good. I would delete them. Yeah, I wouldn't keep things. I wouldn't keep things in either in chat or emails or any kind of like evidence you have to things that are unwanted, that you might be tempted to go back and check, or yeah, it's never going to help. It's it's just never going to be a helpful thing. So I delete them. I would get rid of them, and I would revise the conversation. I would absolutely imagine instead that the chat conversation went in a very different direction, in a desired direction, in a way that you would have liked it to go. But yeah, I can't see any good reason to keep those messages around. Like none. My first time joining the live. Love your videos. Thank you, Hilda. Thank you. And thank you for being here. Courtney, hello. I hope to email you last this week. Fantastic. Fantastic. I look forward to hearing from you. Can you explain more on inner conversations? Yes. So inner conversations is something that we're all having all the time. It's the internal dialogue. All of us are having it all the time. It's a voice that's typically speaking, it's in our own voice, but it's the narration in our mind. It's the narration going on, and sometimes it's, you know, inner narration with us and somebody else. Like, it could be recalling a time that we had a conversation with somebody, or times where we had a fight with somebody is, one of the most common examples of that. But it's the it's the internal narration, internal dialogue, basically, and we're all having it all the time. Like, you can even, if I were to ask you to not have any thoughts come through for 5 minutes, like, we couldn't do that, right? To, like, completely shut off your thoughts, there's always something going on. That narration is the internal conversations. And you want, ideally, to notice the inner conversations naturally lining up with whatever you desire to have happen. Like, that's an aim that we get to, that we want to get to. Any motivation you can give me to not give up on SP. I got ghosted again after SP said he wouldn't, and I'm doubting that my affirmations will work. I have been affirming he's obsessed. Is that okay? I'm sorry, Mackenzie. Um, any motivation? Well, I mean, absolutely, absolutely. And the first thing that, I guess, as far as motivation goes, I mean, absolutely. If you think that it's not possible, if you're starting to doubt whether or not your circumstances can change, I can promise you, absolutely, they can. 100%. 100%. And just speaking from my personal experience, the circumstances were terrible at one point. I mean, if any, third party objective were to look at my situation, they would say that there wasn't a chance in hell that I had to make things work, and they did. Don't ever take the 3D at face value. I know that's easier said than done, because of course we do. That's what we've always been doing. So regardless of any of that, it ultimately doesn't matter. Now, that said, with your affirmations, what more importantly than what you're saying with words, what are you believing? What is your internal conversations in the day? What are your reactions in your day to day? What are the natural thoughts that are coming up about your SP? Did you, like, when he told you he wasn't going to ghost you again, did you believe that he wouldn't, or did you think that he would? Like, these are all things that we need to be very keenly aware of, because that's going to tell us with no uncertainty, or I should say, it'll tell us with complete certainty what state we're occupying. That is the way to tell, like, what the beliefs and assumptions are is going to be directly correlated to what's happening and going to happen in the 3D. Always. So, really gauge what you are doing internally. And if it's not lining up with that state of the wish fulfilled, how, like, what can you do to start to imagine instead that they are? Use affirmations that resonate with you, affirmations that you can get behind, affirmations that boost you, affirmations that make you feel genuinely really, really good. And continue to do that. Continue to recondition that desired outcome in your imagination. Continue to see that desired state and how you would like it to play out in your imagination, and keep going back to that. But do also take close note as to what we're doing up here in the day to day. The 3D can be really triggering sometimes. Yeah, I can't ignore it, and when I acknowledge it, it triggers me more. Any advice, please? Absolutely. Yeah, and yeah, absolutely. The 3D can be incredibly triggering. That's what we're constantly up against. And until the faith in the law is stronger than our attachment to the 3D. It's gonna be feeling like a battle or, something that is very challenging to do. And honestly, if if you are triggered by the 3D, like, if that has happened or is happening, that's okay. Seriously, it's going to happen. We're gonna have reactions, and it's not always gonna be ideal. That's part of being human. And I think for many people in this community, the fear about our reaction to the 3D is, like, in and of itself, like, causing us to try to, like, bottle everything up, shove it all down, and suppress it, and that's only going to it's only gonna exacerbate everything that we're feeling. Like, suppressing our reactions and our feelings may work in the short term, but never will work in the long term. So if you react, like, because it's an unconscious reaction anyway, so it's not like we have conscious control over that. What we do have conscious control over is what we do after the fact. After we've reacted, we can go back and revise it. We can go back and change it, and this is the power of revision. Like, we don't have to accept that this 3D outcome in our reaction, we don't have to, like, keep it as that. We can always change it. Because again, the past isn't real. It's all imaginal acts anyways. So if you react, okay, get it out. Get it out. Cry if you need to cry, if you need to punch pillows, and if you need to sob, whatever. Like, okay, get it out. And Neville even talked about this too. He talked about this a number of times. Like, if you need to explode, explode, but don't let the sun descend upon your anger, which basically means just revise it. Like, once you have let it out, once you have reacted and you calm down and you notice how when we do react, we feel lighter afterwards. Like, after we've had a good cry, it feels like so much lighter and so much better. Well, yeah, once we got to that point, we can then go back and revise it. So, yeah, that would basically be my 2 cents. Don't suppress it. If you react, okay, no big deal, 'cause you can go back and revise it later. So you can't lose. You can't lose at this, guys. Thank you for the heads up, Amanda. You should have been forwarded to a calendar. I'm making a note right now and have somebody get back to you this afternoon to get you sorted, okay? I'm so sorry about that. Um, Let me see. Hi, Missy. How do you know you correctly slash successfully used imagination in order to manifest? How do you know if it reached your subconscious? And how do you feel confident that you truly do have it? Good question, Fergus. So, how do you know you correctly slash successfully used your imagination? Okay, yeah, there's a couple of questions, so let me break them down. So, the way to know that if you are correct in using your imagination or have done it correctly, you'll know by your reactions. You'll know based on the thoughts that come up for you in regards to what you're trying to manifest, the moods, the feelings, the reactions around that. Um, if you have successfully impressed that desired outcome subconsciously, if successfully accepted subconsciously, basically if you did it right, you'll know based on how you react. You'll know based on the thoughts that come up for you. Um, you will not be noticing a lot of things in opposition to that desire. And same thing with how do you know if it reached your subconscious? Because when you think about your desire, it won't be a whole lot of things in opposition to it. It's not gonna you're not gonna feel a lot of anxiety around it anymore. You're not gonna feel, all of the things that imply I don't have it. And how do you feel confident that you truly do have it? Well, again, when you reach the Sabbath, like you're not going to be able to miss it. You're not going to be able to miss it, because you no longer feel the sense of fear, the sense of, am I doing it right? Is this working? All the things that are all the doubts and fears essentially, are not going to be there. So yeah, that's why I say like the best gauge that we have is noting and taking careful observation of how we're reacting and the thoughts that are coming up naturally for us. That's going to tell you everything that you need to know alone. The 3D is never a good gauge, ever, because that's all things that those are all the impressions from a day ago, a week ago, a month ago, whenever. So we never want to gauge by the 3D. It's always by what you're thinking, what you're feeling, how you're reacting. So, can't find my spot. Oh my goodness, thank you for the super chat. Thank you, Ty. There are 3 SPs I could see myself being in a healthy relationship with. Do I need to decide on one SP intentionally, or can I manifest a surprise as to which one reaches out to me? If so, how? Absolutely. Absolutely. So I guess if there's multiple contenders or multiple people that you can see yourself with, I would I would focus more then on the general aspects, the go more general. So, imagining, like, that loving relationship, but not giving a face to it exactly. Like, what does that look like and feel like to you? Um, and just kind of letting yourself get lost in the idea of a romantic relationship, but perhaps, kind of like in the same way as if when we're trying to manifest a new SP, right? Get very, very clear on what that looks like for you. Like when you think about the perfect relationship, like how would you describe it? And then describe it and get more and more familiar with it. So yeah, however it shows up will be a surprise, I guess. I wouldn't say that you have to choose intentionally. I mean, you can, but if you're okay with, you know, different outcomes, then yeah, I would just focus more on, being in a perfect relationship versus the specific person themselves. I hope that makes sense. Good questions today, you guys. Um, Started to spiral today. So glad you're here now, having huge waves of emotion regarding XSP. I'm so sorry, Jackie. I'm happy to have you here too. Hi, Missy. I've been watching your channel religiously for the past 2-3 weeks, and you're such a help. Aw, it's honestly such a relief to know that I don't have to pretend to be dating my SP anymore. Oh, you're so welcome. You're so welcome. I'm happy to have you here. I'm happy to have you here. It's pretty wild. There's been a lot of new subscribers, like over 3,000 in the last 30 days. It's nuts, and thrilled to have everyone here. And I'm glad that you're enjoying the content. And no, we don't have to like deceive ourselves or anything like that. No. Hi, Missy. Came on here last week about a situation with my SP. Now he wants to hang out with me this week. And today he sent me a photo of something that reminded him of me. Gonna keep persisting. Yeah. Yes. Awesome. Awesome. Definitely keep persisting. I love it. I love it. Hi, Missy. I lost interest in my SP. I noticed today that this seems to happen each time I manifest her. I haven't done much self concept. As soon as I stop manifesting her, I start desiring her again. Interesting. So, just to make sure I understand, IK, you lost interest in you've been imagining the end with your person, and you've noticed that you stop having interest in her, and this happens every time you try to manifest or that you imagine the relationship with her? Just let me know if I'm off anywhere. As soon as I stop manifesting, I start desiring her again. Um, did you lose interest with her, or did you lose the desire? There's a difference. Like, did you does it feel like so because sometimes when we reach the Sabbath, what can sometimes happen is we no longer have the longing, the missing, the desiring aspect that comes with, when we first have a desire, it's a very strong, like, I'm separate from from this thing or this person, and I desire to have it. Well, that is like when you move into the Sabbath, you no longer desire it because you've accepted, like, subconsciously, you have it. So it could feel like I don't want them anymore, but ask yourself, if she showed up today, right now, would you still take her back? And if the answer is yes, then you're in the Sabbath, is what that means. If I'm understanding correctly. If I'm understanding correctly. If I am misunderstanding the question, I do apologize. How can I quantum jump to other worlds without always needing to become lucid in a dream first? Um, I mean, I'm certain you could, theoretically speaking, get yourself to a place where you could just, close your eyes for a moment and teleport, so to speak. But I have not personally done that. Um, the way that I've gone through different worlds or other worlds has always been through the hypnagogic state, the lucid state. So, I mean, again, I think you'd need to build up a considerable amount of, you'd have to very much suspend any disbelief that you could rapidly make that kind of a jump, while still conscious. I don't want to say it's not possible, because anything is possible, but I personally have not experienced that. So um, I've always gone through that hypnagogic state first. That's sort of the doorway into anything and everything, basically. Okay. Currently, my sat scene is of my SP on our wedding day, listening to him say his vows. I think it's okay, or would you suggest a later scene? I find myself getting flashes of other scenes on that day. I mean, so can you use a sat scene of your wedding day? I don't see why you couldn't. I mean, if it feels if it feels natural, if it feels good, if it doesn't feel like you're trying to force anything, I don't see why not. Um, some of the difficulties that people have with big events like that, big scenes like that is, feeling like they can't connect to the big emotion that would be happening on that day. For a lot of people, when they try to imagine a wedding day or a proposal, they find themselves trying to force that feeling of excitement or bliss, which can be challenging to do. What I've found to come much more natural and easier is imagine a scene where the two of you have already been together for some time and it feels much more natural. It feels just like a normal everyday part of life. And I'm actually about to come out with a video talking about feeling it real, or how feeling is the secret, and some of the misconceptions around that. Because for a lot of people, we think that we need to have this big emotion involved with our scene, and it's actually kind of the opposite. When you have the desire, when you have the thing that you want, it feels very normal, ordinary, routine. Um, yeah. So like I was saying earlier, it's much more subtle. It's much more subtle. But if it works for you, I don't. I wouldn't. I'd continue to use it. Hi, Missy. I absolutely love your content. Thank you, Wing. Everyone is you pushed out. Any tips on dissolving the illusion of separation? Good question. Absolutely. First thing, continue to build your faith in the law, and specifically continue to build your faith that everyone is you pushed out. Because for a lot of people, these are terms that we've heard like over and over and over and over again. If you're in this community, but how much do we actually believe it? Like genuinely believe it. We may like logically agree with the idea. We can see how that can be a thing. We might understand it, but do we believe it? A lot of the times the answer is no. But there's ways that we can build our faith on that. There's ways that we can get to a place where we have a stronger conviction of everyone as you pushed out. And that would be, observation of other people in regards to you and your beliefs and your thoughts. So basically observing, your inner dialogue, your feelings, your moods versus what is happening in the 3D. And you're ultimately going to see a connection there. You're going to see that other people are always showing up in the way that you typically perceive them to show up, or in the way that you generally perceive people to show up. Um, yeah, that's going to keep building your faith that there is no such thing as like separation and people having authority outside of you or anything like that. Even though I've imagined a lot and I'm saturated by now, as if imagining my wish one more time would exhaust me forever, I still experience feelings of grief when thinking of SP. Is this contradicting? I mean, so you have even though you've been completely saturated and are saturated by this imaginal act, you still experience feelings of grief. I guess I am a little bit confused because I guess my question for you would be, where do you feel or where do you dwell most often? Is it um, saturated in that feeling of the wish fulfilled? Is that predominantly the state that you occupy, or um, is it the feelings of grief? Um, I mean, it sounds on its face contradicting, but I also wanna make sure uh, that I understand the context correctly. So, yeah. Missy, my SB told me that he loves me, but he isn't ready to be with me and he wants to sell our furniture because he is moving to another city in a week. Can I change these circumstances? Absolutely. Yeah, you can change any circumstance. That's why we say all the time that circumstances don't matter. Doesn't matter. None of that matters. Um, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, don't accept it. I would revise all of that. Hey, Missy, wanted to ask as how one can keep the faith in manifesting what seems impossible at the moment and within a specific time frame. How can one keep the faith in manifesting what seems impossible at the moment and also within a specific time frame? I mean, that's gonna feel hard. Bleh, no, I'm not gonna BS you, that's gonna feel if there isn't already strong faith in the law, if perhaps, you know, haven't fully convinced ourselves or there's room for doubt and there's a time frame to change what seems impossible. Yeah, that may seem tricky. I mean, the best thing that we can possibly do is the continuous retrieval to within. Like as much and as often as you can, I would keep returning to that imaginal act. Keep returning to it. Like get as familiar as you can to it, to the best of your ability. You know, put anything that reminds you of the 3D circumstance. Like if there's any physical reminders in the 3D, I would remove those to the best of your ability. I don't know your circumstances exactly, so I don't know how much you're able to do that. But remove anything that reminds you of the unwanted circumstance and continue. And this is a good way to practice going within. This is a fantastic way to practice going within over and over and over again. Um, because that's really how we do it. um, and also just make sure that you're in general keeping that sharp observation to what's happening around you. So paying attention to the internal world versus the external world so you can see more and more of the connection between the two because so many times we don't see just how much of a connection we have between the inner world and the outer world. We're on autopilot so much. So many thoughts and reactions and moods fly under the radar that we don't see just how much of a strong connection there is between what we are internalizing and what's happening externally. And the more that we can see this connection, the more that we can naturally and obviously prove it to ourselves is going to build your faith. Um, I would read success stories. I would, as many as you can find. I would just whatever can help to keep you suspended in that state of the wish fulfilled as much and as often as possible. So getting rid of external, uh, I guess any external thing that says what you don't want or is related to what you don't want, and whatever can keep you internally in that state of the wish fulfilled to the best of your ability. I revise, but my mind goes back to the original story. How to make it stick so the revision works? Good question. And depending on what we're trying to revise exactly, whatever the memory is, whatever the story is, uh, if it's a significant thing or if it's a bigger circumstance, if it's a more impactful memory, we much more likely are going to have to go back a handful of times, a number of times, to revise it. That's not at all uncommon. So if you need to return to that revised scene, like as many times as necessary to, then do so. Uh, yeah, for the seemingly bigger things, it's may feel a lot more challenging to stick than something that we don't have as much attachment to, if that makes sense. Um, yeah, and the other thing, if you're noticing resistance to what you're trying to revise, if you're noticing any kind of like pushback or your mind is trying to reject it, remember that we're not trying to like coerce ourselves or lie to ourselves and say that, oh, this revised thing is what actually happened. We're just entertaining that state because that past outcome that we would have wanted to have happen, that new memory already exists. It's a real reality. So we're just letting ourselves go there, occupy it, and get familiar with it. And sometimes we need to do that a number of times before it really does start to stick. But if you continue to go back to it, it will absolutely start to stick. The video you made with your personal SP story resonates a lot with me. Oh, thank you. Currently taking things slow with SP to reach full commitment again. I know you said revision helped you reach this. Any tips? Absolutely. Well, actually, the last video that I made is about revision. And I've made a couple other videos about revision that I would absolutely check out because those kind of go more into detail about, how to apply it and some of the things that I did absolutely when it came to revising my old story, which I did revise a lot of that old story. So yeah, I would check out those videos for sure. I'm done. Oh, chat's jumpy. Hey Missy, how can I transcend time with my manifestation? According to Neville, it's 3 days. What's your advice? So that's actually a really good question. There's some confusion about the whole 3 day thing. When Neville spoke about 3 days, um, he was referring to in the Bible when it says 3 days, it doesn't literally mean 3 days. Um, 3 days is it's a metaphor for the time it takes to become natural. So it's not like 3 days in the literal sense. So when you hear Neville talk about, or when you hear in the Bible it says 3 days, they're referring to the time that it takes to feel natural and complete to you, because the number 3 in the Bible, the symbolism of the number 3 in the Bible is completion. Everything is finished. So, yeah, that means what he's referring to is the time that it takes to become complete for you, till it feels finished and natural for you, is what that means. I have been unsuccessfully manifesting an SP for a few years, not constantly, but I just can't get past her being in a 5-year relationship. How can I wipe her from my mind like she never existed? Oh, you mean like sunshine, the eternal sunshine style? Eternal sunshine of the spotless mind? I mean, revision, revision. Now, admittedly, you know, with something to that degree, uh, you may need to work at it quite a bit. You may need to go back and revise quite a few times to get that new memory to stick. But I mean, you can absolutely revise anything, and that includes somebody that you've met in the past. Yeah. How do you confirm that revision has taken place? How do you know if you've revised correctly? because the new memory will be what pops up. Like, when you recall the event, it'll be the new memory that comes up for you. And there's times where you will not remember that old memory. That certainly happens sometimes. Or if you do recall the old memory, you're gonna be so detached from it, it's gonna feel like it didn't happen to you. It's gonna feel almost like it's a memory you have, but, like, somebody else's memory. It's a weird way to describe it's a weird feeling, but the best way to describe it is you recall that that thing happened, but you don't remember it happening to you. It's very separate from you, basically. But ultimately, what you're going to resonate with and what's going to feel most natural is the that new memory instead. So you'll know that you've successfully revised because it'll be the new story that pops up first. That's going to be what you resonate with. And the old memory, if you do remember it at all, it's going to feel very separate from you, like it didn't happen. It's it's weird, I know. Can scripting as a means of revision be used too, instead of using imagination? Absolutely, but just to be clear, and I have to point this out because this is a really common misconception. When I talk about imagination, I'm not strictly referring to visualization. And a lot of people have gotten those 2 terms confused, like, they think they mean the same thing, that imagination is synonymous with visualization. It's not. Visualization is one aspect of our imagination. Um, just like thoughts are one aspect of our imagination, memories are one aspect of our imagination. Our imagination is the internal world and all the things going on in it. So our thoughts, our moods, the inner dialogues, visualizing, any like all of that is taking place in our imagination. So I need to be abundantly clear about that because I know that that's commonly misunderstood in this context at least. So, but can you use scripting as a means of revision instead of visualizing? Yes, absolutely. You can revise through any of the techniques. You can use any of the techniques to and apply it to a revision. It doesn't just have to be visualization. It can be scripting. It can be affirmations. Um, yeah, yeah, and anything of the sort. The one thing that we just want to make sure is that it's done in a way that we can begin to resonate or we can begin to connect to that thing that we revise. Um, Start to feel into it, basically. Hi, I've recently started doing sats. I noticed that when I wake up several times a night, I find myself still looping the scene, just audio, when I wake up, but no feelings accompanied. Am I doing it right? I mean, yeah, from the sounds of it. So you've recently started doing sats. You'll wake up in the night and find that you're still looping your scene. Yeah, I'd say that's a good indication because that would be definitely something that you're doing subconsciously or have been doing subconsciously in your sleep. So I'd say that, yeah. And no feelings accompanied. Well, by feelings, do you mean emotion? Because it's not necessarily that we'll feel great big emotions associated with it. If we're talking about that, um, when when I mention feeling or when Neville mentions feeling, it's more the feeling of naturalness. So the the feeling of this is normal to you. This is natural to you. That's what I mean. It's hard because the word feeling has like freaking 7 different definitions. So I think that's where a lot of people get confused. But yeah, from what you're describing, yeah, if you're looping it as you're waking up, something's taking place subconsciously. So I would keep going. Can we manifest anything the same way Neville told to manifest the ladder, denying during the day, etc.? I mean, yeah, yeah. In fact, Neville famously said that, when he told his followers to try ladder technique, the ladder exercise, he said for those to, try this exercise, and for those who successfully climb a ladder by the next meeting, come back. And I think it was like 2 weeks later, he held another a lecture, and the people who came back are the ones who successfully climbed the ladder. And he told them, you could have just as easily done that for $1 million. Like you could have used that for anything, basically. That's the power of imagination. So yeah, we can absolutely apply that in the same vein, 100%. And the point of the ladder exercise was to show that imagination is stronger than words, basically. I mean, you can tell yourself something all day, every day, but whatever you are, subconsciously accepting as true is what, whatever's being subconsciously impressed, whatever is imagined and accepted is what ultimately is reflected. Hi, Missy. How do you feel about affirmations? It has been the effective method for me. Do you have an umbrella one you recommend? There are multiple things you are wanting to come into place. Thank you. Absolutely. And that's awesome. I mean, my thoughts about affirmations are that it can absolutely be an effective tool. I know it's probably the most popular technique for many people because it's deemed like the easiest, quote unquote. Um, Now it's going to be different for everybody, of course, but if it's been the most effective method for you, then awesome. As far as an umbrella affirmation, a popular go-to is everything always works out for me, everything always goes in my favor. Um, I always ultimately get what I want, things like that. So, that could be applied across a spectrum of things, really. So, yeah, something like that. I mean, my only 2 cents about affirmations is, using affirmations that resonate, that can help us to get behind what we're doing, like, you know, boost us up, and ones that we really can feel into. Find 'em a spot. Oh, I'm glad you enjoyed the SP video. What is true about there is always movement? Good question. So, and I absolutely agree with that. We're constantly moving in and out of states, so we are constantly moving. What people mean by that when they say that there's always movement is basically, don't look to the 3D, and just because you see radio silence from the 3D doesn't mean that it's not working or it's not happening or anything like that. Um, and unfortunately, it's a gauge that a lot of people use. Like if nothing is moving and happening in the 3D, we automatically assume that nothing's working. And that's never the case because the bridge is going to unfold outside of our conscious awareness. Like we're not going to consciously know what the bridge looks like until we're on the other side of it. Um, so I guess, and again, that goes back to the best way to gauge what states we're occupying or what states we're moving into, in and out of, is our own internal dialogue, our own thoughts, our natural feelings, and all of that. Um, Basically, turning within, turning within, and seeing for ourselves, like what is that's going to determine, I guess, the direction that we're going, and we can always redirect as needed. But yeah, just because we don't see movement in the 3D doesn't mean anything. The 3D is a terrible gauge to use as to whether or not it's working for us. Yeah, no, don't do that. Your clear cut videos have helped me understand the simplicity of all this so much. Oh, thank you, Brittany. Thank you. My pleasure. My absolute pleasure. I'm so happy they're helpful for you. Hi, Missy. I've been testing the law on small things to build faith, like a purple balloon, pink car, etc. Can these show up in any iteration? Example, TV commercial with a purple balloon. And how long should these take to see? To the first question, yes, they can show up in any iteration. If you're being general about it, like, just, I'm going to see a purple balloon, then that doesn't have to be literally like in the sky. It could be a picture, it can be on a commercial. Yeah, I would still count that unless you're being very, very specific. And how long should it take? That's going to be a bit trickier because it really ultimately depends. It depends, because we're using the backwards law in this effect. And what I mean by that is when it comes to testing the small things, um, to have success with this list method, testing it, we need to be able to drop it. Like once we've taken a moment to, come up with a few things to manifest, perhaps even like, imagine it for a quick moment each time and then drop it. It's gonna show up when you're not looking for it, basically, is what I mean by that. So if you're noticing that you're, like, constantly looking or reminding yourself that it's not here yet, that's only going to add time to the duration. Um, yeah. So how long until we see them? It could be anywhere from a couple of minutes, even less, to weeks. Really depends on how much we're, you know, if we're continuously putting into awareness that we don't see it, it's not here yet, why is it not here yet? That's only gonna continue the time delay. Hi, Missy, you have such a beautiful voice. Are you a singer of Oh, you're so sweet, Giselle, thank you. I actually just started taking, vocal lessons again for the first time in decades. I used to be a singer when I was younger. Unfortunately, though, I started smoking and I have since quit, but yeah, I just started taking lessons again, so thank you, though. Is it true that rejection doesn't exist and is just a cognitive dissonance/bias? Well, I mean, I would take it further to say everything is cognitive dissonance/bias because there is nothing outside of the local reality. Like, in terms of your world and what you're seeing and observing, nothing exists outside of your conscious awareness. And physics is actually getting closer and closer to showing us this. So if a tree falls in a forest and no one's around, did it really fall or make a noise? No, because it didn't exist in the sense of the 3D observation of it. It's wild, but yeah. Yeah, if anyone's curious to learn more about that, you should look up um, the Nobel Prize winners for in physics for 2022. It's weird. Some manifestations can be accompanied by fear of receiving it. How to release that fear? Will that fear make my manifestation go away? Thank you in advance. Absolutely. So the fear of receiving your manifestation, will that make the manifestation go away? Well, the good news is you can never, like, actually fail at manifesting completely. Like, we can miss the mark, we can effectively, like, delay our manifestation, but states of consciousness are eternal. So it's never gonna be that that desired outcome doesn't exist, because it always exists. That said, if we are fearful of receiving it, that can certainly delay it, yeah. Um, and how to release that fear? Get familiar with having it in imagination. Get accustomed to the feeling of having it in your imagination, and that will help you to, I guess, release anything that feels like, "Oh god, I'm scared of receiving this thing," right? Get acclimated to it first in your imagination, and you're gonna notice that the fear of receiving that desire, uh, lessens considerably. Oh my god, Mark. Holy shit, dude, thank you. You did not have to do that. Thank you. Congrats on all the new subs. Thank you. I'm here for it. My best friend Danny straightened his lower back during heavy deadlifts at the gym. So he was doing the night before. What's the best thing I could do to help him heal better than 100%? Oh, that's awesome. And I'm sorry to hear about Danny. So, what can you do to help him if he hurt himself? Strained his lower back? Oh, the first thing I would do is imagine, having a conversation or hearing from him, dude, I'm feeling 100% again. I don't know what happened, but I'm feeling great. Like, all the pain is gone, basically. Like, I would get clear on that, hone in on that state in your imagination, and then drop it 100%. Yeah. Yeah, but you can even revise that on the spot. Like, whatever you heard in that conversation, I would just imagine that it went completely different, or yeah. Or imagine hearing him say like, "Dude, I don't know what happened, but I'm feeling 100% better." And I'm excited to see what's gonna happen. I'm looking forward to meeting you tomorrow. Or not meeting up with you again tomorrow. Thank you again, dude. Oh my god, you did not have to do that. Hi, I just subscribed after watching a video on SATs, and I was wondering if one doesn't have a specific scenario, I lack creativity sometimes, nor an SP, but still wants to do SATs, what should they do? Good question. So if you don't have a specific scene, or if there's anything specific that you desire to see manifest, you can always use something like the lullaby method or Isn't It Wonderful? Which I did make a video about that if you're curious to know more about what that is. But essentially, it's the general feeling of satisfaction, for example. It's a general feeling of, uh, accomplishment or relief, something that implies that things are going your way, going the way that you want it to go. Um, so that's an effective way to utilize imagination in your favor. Um, if there's nothing big that you have or if there's nothing, I guess, a big scenario or a big scene that you can think of, you can always also think of like smaller things, quote unquote. Um, like if there's a gift that you want to receive, if there's yeah, I mean, it really can be anything. But if you don't have anything like so-called big that you're desiring to manifest and you just want to play around with sats, you can do it for literally anything. Like, you know, literally anything. And this will actually naturally help you to build that creative imagination muscle, which is going to be super helpful in general. So yeah. Thank you for the super chat. Thank you, Christina. My SP and I are broken up and it's triggered my abandonment wound so bad. I can't It's been 2 weeks no contact. 3D has been super horrible. I stopped trying to affirm and visualize for us. Help, please. Oh, goodness. Oh, I have been there. I am so sorry, Christina. Um, yeah, first thing that I would do if it feels too painful right now to imagine you and SP, or if, just bringing him up is a triggering point for you right now, I wouldn't. I would first just keep the focus on you. Right now, I would first just keep the attention on imagining yourself, feeling better first and foremost, and again, it can be, and I know how difficult it can be when you have that anxiety and sadness. It can feel crippling. So what? Don't try to force anything right now. Don't try to like push yourself with like willpower to just like bulldoze through it. First and foremost, just things like even like breathing exercises, things to help alleviate the anxiety, to help you get to a place where even just a place of neutrality, just feeling neutral. It's not even that you have to feel good, but just if you can like kind of guide yourself, alleviate anxiety to the point where you just feel neutral. From there, you can, do things like, um, you know, focusing on a more general state you wish to occupy, right? Perhaps hearing friends telling you in imagination um, how happy they are to see you doing so wonderfully, right? Hearing the confirmation that, you know, you're doing much better, basically. And typically how like I'm a huge fan of internal conversation, like the telephone technique, as Neville called it. Like hearing the confirmation of your friends in your imagination tell you how happy they are for you, that you're doing so much better, that I'm so proud of you for everything that you've overcome, things like that. Keeping it a lot more broad and just focusing on you right now. And that's really the biggest thing above all else. Like y- you know, take the attention off of anything that feels too painful right now. Like you can always come back to that at a different point. That again, that state is now it's not going anywhere. But right now, I would absolutely focus on you and your healing and the building up that conception of self and seeing yourself and imagining yourself more and more as the person that you desire to be, and giving yourself that strength and that confidence to overcome whatever you may be going through right now. And you will. You absolutely will. You absolutely will. Take care of you first. How did you manifest your eye color change? Good question. I had a scene that I played out a few times. Uh, well, it was a couple different scenes, but it was all kind of the same message, and that was people, looking at me and saying, "Is your eyes different? Is your eye color different?" And that was what I kind of played out in my mind with a couple different people. Well, that was effectively it. I did that maybe I played out that scene maybe half a dozen times or so, and I dropped it. "Hello, Missy. I'm currently out fishing." "Awesome. Is it true that sometimes things can get worse before your manifestation shows up? I was in a good state of being and then received some bad news." "Oh, boo." Um, eh, can things get worse before your manifestation I mean, yeah, yeah, they can. Um, and it's not uncommon that we all it's actually not uncommon for this type of thing to happen. When we seemingly are doing better, we're getting in the hang of it, we're in a good state of being, and then something comes along to knock us out of that state. Yeah, that sounds like ego backlash to me, which I've also made a video about. So if you guys haven't heard about ego backlash, check that out. Um, yeah, yeah, it can be stupid and frustrating, but I mean, ultimately know that you can get yourself right back to that state. I mean, nothing can keep you down and out forever. That's not a thing. Um, I would revise the bad news. I would, do my best to continue to focus on that desired outcome again and, like, redirecting your attention back to that, like, moving back into that state of the wish fulfilled. Um, just practice getting yourself back there. But yeah, is this uncommon? Not at all. All right, I got time for maybe 1 or 2 more questions. Ego backlash seems so random, and I can imagine some people get whiplash with that. Absolutely. Yeah, and that's where it can be so tricky because we seem like we're doing so much, like, better, right? Like, we were on a roll with it, like, "Oh my god, I'm finally getting the hang of this, I feel so good," and then boom, like, where the hell did that come from? So it can feel like, like, leaving us delirious, like, "What the hell did that come from?" No, ego. Ego, yeah. Tips on managing ego backlash. Eckhart Tolle suggests stilling your mind and simply allowing the emotions to pass through are as methods perhaps ones we in this community should use with the 3D. I would agree. Yeah. Managing ego backlash. So, I mean, for those who don't know, basically, like I just described, it's when we're seemingly doing well or, just had a major breakthrough and then boom, we get knocked down and out. Um, and it can be very alarming if we don't know what's going on because where the hell did that come from? It's important to remember that the function of the ego is it's all self-preservation. It's preservation of the self. Your ego is that sense of I, that identity, that is you, that is Missy Renee, that is you. So we all have it, and it's the basically another word for the self concept, right? But the ego wants to preserve the sense of self. That's its job. That's its main function. So anything that we're doing that is, moving outside of what to us feels normal, natural, believable, basically any type of improvement, even the ego is going to perceive that as a threat. It's the same reason why people try to take on New Year's resolutions and 88% fail within the first month or something like the statistics are pretty not great, and it's because ego backlash. We are The ego is terrified of change, uh, fear of the unknown. So even the limiting beliefs and assumptions that we don't like and consciously want to get rid of can feel very challenging to let go of. So that's basically what that is. Um, and yeah, stilling your mind and allowing the emotions to pass through, yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, first and foremost, just knowing what is happening is gonna be half the battle. Knowing and understanding that this is just ego backlash, that this is just this is the old man throwing a fit and the old man not wanting to change. And even just knowing that in and of itself is gonna, alleviate some of the fear and the what the hell just happened. Um, And then, yeah, just allowing it to pass through. Just allow it to happen. Don't try to shove it, don't try to suppress it, don't try to, ignore it. Like, let it all get out, calm down. Again, we can always go back and revise later. And yeah, yeah, that really is. And I guess the last important thing to note with ego backlash is if you go back to that state of the wish fulfilled, like, say you did have a backlash, you fell out of that desired state. Okay, well, once the dust settles, move back to that state of the wish fulfilled, continue to go back there. Less and less that ego backlash is gonna be a thing. It's not gonna continuously happen. Like, it won't. So, like, let it all come through, let it move through you, revise it, let it calm down, and then just go back to the end. Go back to the wish fulfilled. Thank you, Jennifer. Yeah, you guys, if you've been having fun on the stream, don't forget to hit the like button. Um, Da, da, da. Where was I? If you had any resistance against it, how did you overcome beliefs that you couldn't manifest physical changes? I want to manifest physical changes myself, but I find it hard to believe it's possible. That's a good question. And I think you can apply this for just about anything that we're trying to manifest. If there's resistance against it, one of the strongest ways to combat that is build our faith. Continue to build your faith in the law. Um, yeah, there's it's going to feel very challenging to persist in that end state, or not be moved by the 3D if we don't have conviction. um so building your faith in the law, it continue, and you do that through not just testing it, but just the observation. See more and more the connection between the internal world and the outer world, because like if you are aware, if you are observing, you're going to see it. You're going to notice through small and big things alike. We had a thought or a feeling or a reaction, and then something happened. Like it's constantly a reflection out here. That's all this is. And the more that we see it, the less that we're able to dismiss it as coincidence. So continuing to build your faith in the law, and that's why faith is such an important aspect of this equation. It's Neville said the formula for manifestation is imagination plus faith, and he wasn't kidding. So um, yeah, yeah. Continue to build your faith and trust in the law. And with that, you'll be able to overcome anything. All right. I think Why do I see myself in third person with memories? Is this weird? No, not at all. I think most people see themselves in third person. Oh, with memories? No, I've definitely heard. I'm trying to recall if I ever. No, I definitely had memories where it was in third person. I think it's in the same way that for a lot of people, when they imagine something, it's easier to imagine themselves in third person, like seeing themselves as if they're watching a movie of something that happened. I think that's just something that we've naturally done. Again, I say most people, not everybody, but I think it's just been easier to imagine us on a movie screen than trying to perceive things through our own eyes in our imagination. It might take some practice seeing things through first person and imagination, and that's why we can do little things throughout the day to day to strengthen that. The imagination is truly like a muscle, in the sense of the more that we exercise it, the easier and more natural it's going to come to us. But no, I wouldn't say it's weird. I'd actually say a lot of people see things in third person in their imagination. Um, just take some practice. Just take some practice. Let me see. Your videos are the only videos that teach me about patience with the law of assumption, and it brings me so much peace. Thank you, Kimberly. Thank you. I am so glad. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Ugh, damn it. Unfortunately, it is about that time. I do have to wrap up. I know there's so many more questions, and I'm so sorry, you guys. Uh, Not able to get to them all today, but I do want to thank you guys for joining me today. I've had a lot of fun. Your questions have been awesome. I do apologize if any were missed or I couldn't get to them, but this is a weekly thing. I come here every Sunday. Well, most every Sundays. So I will be hopefully seeing you all next week. Do take care in the meantime. Have a beautiful rest of your weekend, and much love to all of you. I will see you all soon. Bye, all.